My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm Cloud Hire.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm Cloud Hired.
So, I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm Cloud Hired.
Because of Go Cloud Architect program, I am Cloud Hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the Glowcloud team.
Welcome, everyone. We are here today to talk about something that I'm always excited about: how to take a cloud architect or a solutions architect and get them promoted to a principal architect or a distinguished architect. And what are those role differences? Why do these roles pay so much? And what do you have to be to actually get there? So, welcome, everyone. That's going to be the topic today. We're going to go over the principal architect role, the distinguished architect role. We'll talk about the impact of what we do with each role. And then my team of experts are going to talk about some of those skills that are actually necessary to be able to do those things and do it well. And along the panel, we have our Chief Technology Officer, Mark Milovanovic, who is a network architect. He also holds a CCIE. I have Alonzo Coleman here. He is also part of our C-suite. He holds an MBA, in addition to being a cloud architect and possessing about 30 years experience in brand building. And part of moving into these roles is building a professional brand with you. So Alonzo's an expert on that. And me, well, my first principal architect role was actually in 2001. So it's only started there for me. And I went into every type of other executive role you can imagine along the way. So I've also trained people for about 20 years and helped them move into principal architect roles and bigger roles as well. So that's what we're going to talk about on this show. And I'm excited about it. Before we begin, I'll kick it over to Alonzo, and then Mark may say a few words, and then we will get into the show. So let me know you're here, and give me a hashtag principal architect or a hashtag distinguished architect so I know you're here.
Yeah, you definitely bring that in, everyone. Yeah, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. Well, it's always, hope everyone can hear me.
We can hear you, Alonzo.
We can hear you.
Okay. All right. I might have had some delay there. Sorry about that, everyone. We are glad to be here. I'm definitely happy to always speak to everyone who wants to become any type of cloud architect. We can definitely help. We want to share something amazing that we rarely do, and we always have a wonderful experience behind, and that is offering our 60% off blackout sale. So this thing is a phenomenal opportunity for you to leverage your desire to become a great cloud architect. You can be a generative AI architect, a cloud security architect, cloud networking architect. You can be a generalist architect or an enterprise architect. Whatever you want to be, we have the solution and the resources to get you where you are. So take advantage of the 60% off sale. Also, we're also going to have a Q&A tomorrow, a Q&A webinar. So any of your cloud questions that you may have, think about them now, write them down today, give them to us, and we'll be happy to answer anything that you have. So on to you, Mr. Mark.
I mean, what else can I say, Alonzo? It's like he put the cherry on top of the cake already, letting everybody know we got this fantastic deal going on. And I think it transitions nicely into this conversation on how can you get promoted? How can you increase your income? And today we're going to discuss pretty much some facets that we train within the program everything from an enterprise architecture to cloud to security, as well as Gen AI, on what skills are relevant that you should really focus on that will make the difference. And I'm going to give a little bit of a tease. It is not tech, believe it or not, it is not. But we will also be discussing some of the what we call hard skills, like our technical skills, but as well as our soft skills, our non-technical skills that can help you propel yourself with the right training towards that six-figure income, and of course into that middle, bracket that we'll discuss when it comes to being a distinguished architect as well.
Absolutely. And we'll show those skills as you move up these architect ranks that can be $100,000 more or $200,000 more per year. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So welcome everyone. Actually, you know what? Let me know where you're from as well. I see we've got Kennedy in Lagos, which is fantastic. I know Igor is in England, I believe, via the way of Poland. And I know Mark is in San Francisco, but I'm not sure where the rest of you are. Preb's in Sacramento. So let me know where you're at. And because I always love knowing how many people we have from all over the world. So let's basically briefly talk about the role differences. And I'm going to talk about the generic differences between, say, a regular cloud architect or a regular AWS solutions architect versus that principal AWS solutions architect or that principal Cisco solutions architect versus that distinguished architect that we're typically dealing with. And there's a couple differences in the role. The cloud architect role, the solutions architect role, that is typically speaking the entry-level architect role that someone takes. And I can give you examples like Ivan Tambo, who was 24 years old before we met him. We trained him and he took a solutions architect role at AWS as his first job. I can give you examples of people like Jeffrey West, who got a solutions architect job right after we trained him as his first job in tech. I could give you Daniel Bosu, who took our training and got his first job as a solutions architect, and he was 20 years old. So, I mean, I can show you many examples of that, but the point is, it's that entry-level role, that solutions architect or that first cloud architect, and that is a role where you're there to help your clients design their systems to improve their business performance. We'll talk about that a little more. Now, when we reach the principal architect, and I was a principal architect within the first 2 years of my career, so it doesn't have to take you 15 or 20 years, but the role is a little different. When we take in this principal role, typically speaking, we're an expert on something. We're an expert on voice communications in the cloud, for example. Or in my case, it was IP multicast and IP multicast video solutions, where you spend a lot of time and you develop a lot of expertise in one thing. And then your job is both as a technical strategist in that world and someone that knows how you can use that tech in a business context. Now, when we get to the distinguished cloud architect, this is a totally different level. When you're at this level, you're talking about the highest level of expertise. You're talking about industry-wide recognition. An example would be Russ White when he was at Cisco, and Russ White in general. Everybody knows him. He was part of the Cisco Distinguished Architect team, and everybody knows him in every case part of the world if they're in networking. So that's kind of that difference we're talking about. Now, the scope of responsibility of these roles is also a little different. We've got a cloud architect role, and it's what I call moderately strategic. Half of this role is focused on the tech and the strategy behind the tech, and the other half of it is focused on the business. So we're kind of moderately strategic here. We're trying to improve that business performance, but we're not doing it necessarily at that executive level like a chief architect or enterprise architect. Now, when we have a principal cloud architect, something interesting changes. Their role typically becomes 30 to 40% tech, and then 60 to 70% business. And we'll talk about why that is when we talk about the scope of what gets done in these roles. And as we get into these distinguished architect roles, we still have someone that's got good, strong technical competency, but now 80+% of these roles are business. And the distinguished architect role is more about showing the industry how the technology can optimize their business performance, or it's shaping an organization or strategy and vision. So we move up More business, more business. You'll see it again and again. And we can show you statistics if you desire on different architect roles and salaries later, which Alonso put together in some good graphics that I can share with you as well if you desire. Just let me know that. But now let's talk about the leadership amount of what we're doing. We may have an early entry-level cloud architect that's managing a team, a small team in their architecture team of 6 or 7 people. And they have those 6 or 7 people with them on their project. Now, when you reach principal architect level, now you're either consulting to organizations, or if you're going to own that architecture team, now you're going to have a bigger team. This is where you've got these teams of 15 to 50 people that this principal cloud architect is managing and leading and strategizing along the way. And why is it? Because they're working on such big problems, they're going to need that big team. Now, by the time we get to that distinguished architect, and, I've held these roles as well. You think more like that David Lithicum, that Russ White. You think that thought leader that's, influencing the industry, influencing an entire company and their decisions. And when we start dealing about the interaction and the client interaction in these roles, it changes too. And my team's going to talk about these skills soon. So the average typical cloud architect, now a strategic one, a better one, will start working at higher levels, but the average cloud architect works with predominantly project stakeholders. So there may be the CIO, there may be the VP of technology, that kind of thing, director of technology. Now, when we start reaching the principal cloud architect level, now we're working with much more senior stakeholders. And by the time we're a distinguished cloud architect, our architects are now mostly spending their time with C-suite executives. The average CEO's time is worth $15,000 an hour. So in order to get 15 minutes of a CEO's time to talk about tech strategy, you have to bring in somebody that's known in the entire industry, that's in magazines like CIO Magazine and Tech Republic and Tech Radar, Information Week. Actually, I've actually written articles for all these magazines too, but you're dealing with someone that's got that kind of broad reputation and they're known in the industry. Now let's talk about decision-making authority. And there's a reason we're going over these role differences. The cloud architect typically makes decisions within the project scope, and that can be pretty big. It really can. Now, when we're dealing with the principal cloud architect, we could be influencing decisions across multiple projects or domains, because maybe we're the IP multicast video specialist that works for a company like Cisco, and you're working on 4 projects that are already supporting the other teams that are there. And that brings us into the last few things, is industry recognition. So as a normal cloud architect, you're well known in your company. As a principal cloud architect, you're presenting at every major conference. You're now starting to be known in the industry, and you've got good industry recognition. By the time you're a principal cloud architect, you're traveling a distinguished cloud architect, you're traveling a quarter of a mile a year. You're meeting leaders all over the world. You're presenting at every conference you could possibly think of. You're doing mostly executive briefings. You're doing fly-ins and fly-outs and fly-overs, showing people some love. And then if we think about that and its impact on strategy, and that's where our team is going to talk about these skills. As the cloud architect, you're designing a solution to support business goals. So you better have some good knowledge of business to be able to do it. Now, when you get to that principal cloud architect role, now you're starting to shape the organization's cloud strategy and drive more and more closely aligned to the organization's business objectives. And by the time we reach that distinguished cloud architect level, we're driving business transformation through innovative solutions. And interesting, when you start reaching the executive architect, these enterprise architect levels, we're driving business transformation, and that is the whole focus of our role. So interestingly enough, the enterprise architect role is probably 80+% business and 20% tech. And the enterprise architect could be often called the CIO or the chief architect or the chief technology officer. And that's 80% business. So, you could go down I want to be an executive, enterprise architect as you move up your career, or you can move up through these cloud architect or solution architect, these domain architectures, but you're still going to do the same job. And ultimately, you're going to need the same set of skills as you move up. And mostly, it's not about your technical skills at this point. It really isn't. Some of it is going to be domain expertise. Absolutely. Some of it absolutely will. And some of it could be a technology expertise. But at this point, it's not. It's mostly more of those business skills. So, Alonzo, when I started talking about these things, so going from managing a project with 5 or 10 people to now managing a project with 50 people, when I start talking about driving digital transformation and innovation through spending time at the C-suite, what's different about that than talking to the organization about just doing their technology? Talk about it from an MBA perspective or an executive perspective or a C-suite perspective.
Absolutely, Mike. Now let's look at that perspective there. So we're looking at something that could affect an organization continentally or even globally. It could well make or break based off of those strategic decisions on that level. That's going to require a strategic and leadership based execution, mental toughness. It's going to have you're going to need someone who understands the needs of the business on a higher global international level, not just when it boils down to any departmentals, although those are important. But when you aggregate those teams on top of departments, on top of regions, on top of continents and nationalities, and being able to meet the needs based off of how they respond to that particular country, culture, and whatever, that requires delicate, strategic, incremental execution that's well thought out, that's that has the right stakeholders involved, the leaders who are investing in those particular areas and understand those intimate market needs. That requires someone who's well planned, who's well thought out, who understands the market, who has the competency and experience to meet the rubber where the road is and understand how to execute at a high level. So those type of roles are very, very important, because not only is it important that they're able to leverage and move that company where it needs to be, but those optics, those ability to showcase who you are as that particular face of the company. You have to understand what you're talking about. You have to understand what you mean, what you say what you mean, because anything that you share out there is going to be the responsibility of that company to be beholding to what you're saying. So you really, really have to put your best foot forward and showcase your leadership skills, your ability to speak to anyone from any culture with any type of disposition, personality, competency, be able to understand that the variations in who people are in that organization collectively are the strength of that company, and you're able to leverage that and execute with excellence and efficiency.
Yeah, and you mentioned everything. Alonzo mentioned cross-cultural things, and that's kind of an interesting thing. Alonzo, you lived in Tokyo, right?
Yes.
How close did you stand next to people there? Like that. Now, what happens if somebody that's used to standing that close comes to you in Texas? Can anybody stand that close to you in Texas?
Yeah,
exactly.
they're not going to like that.
So
get out of my face.
Yeah. Whether it's gestures that we do at home that would be offensive in another country, like a thumbs up, which could be good in the US, is not good in certain parts of the world. So you just wouldn't use that in certain parts of the world, or anything from personal distance. So if we have to exercise influence across a global community, first thing is we need to be emotionally intelligent. Second thing is we need to understand others and how they're different from us and yet the same as us. So we don't offend people when we're trying to be nice and say hello, because it's easily to be miscommunication across things, and it's carrying that authenticity. But all in all, the rest of us, we're still the same. So it's those same leadership skills that work in one place, for the most part, work in other places after they're adapted stylistically. And that's really what's there. So there's that. Now, Mark, that ability to influence executives as we moved up, the ability to be relevant to executives as we move up. And the reason I say this is we could have a cloud architect that's working on a smart architecture where the VP of architecture said, figure out our cloud stuff. And that could be someone's entry level job. It could be. And that person has to go figure it out, and they got to call a bunch of cloud vendors, and they got to build a little mini team of what they have, and they've got to design it, and they've got to present it to management and convince management to buy it, and then figure out what the kind of RFIs, RFPs they need to send out to the vendors, get that, and manage the vendors. So there's still a lot of stuff that goes on here. But when you're not reporting to the VP of architecture, and now you need to get $1 billion of budget from the CEO and the CFO, because you know that there's some strategy you can give them that will help their business and whatever their initiative is. Talk about the difference of that CXO relevancy, that executive presence, that credibility, and anything else you want to add to that, Mark.
Yeah, so I would start off with what Alonso described. It kind of drew a few things to mind. Number one, we're looking really at a blend of skill sets that will require to transition, first of all, into an architect role, and then have this progressive kind of tiering system where we can, as we better ourselves and we get better and more efficient at these skills, we can kind of promote into these different positions. So there's this blend between technical skills, which are still relevant, even though they might be a little bit more decreased as you move up. But we're talking business acumen.
Yeah.
Alonso mentioned leadership skills. I got a fantastic actual statistic on leadership skill that I'm going to share with everybody.
Good.
But even just general soft skills. Many times we see that just technicians, while they can be sociable, as soon as you put them into a situation where they have to put their business hat on, they completely turn cockside. They really don't know which way to go anymore. It just feels like they're running in circles. And that is the reason why there's a lot of IT leaders actually that tell us, and I got the statistics in front of you, that say that about 70% of the IT leaders that were surveyed by Deloitte said that those IT professionals that can have decision-making ability and be strategic about it. So now we're talking about being stakeholder relevance, the CXO relevant that we're talking about, are going to be the ones that are going to be considered for promotions within their respective enterprises. Now, that can be mean if you're starting off a little bit more like that mid-level position as a cloud architect, that you can kind of transition into principal or eventually into distinguished cloud architect. And all that based on the fact that you show that you can relate to how decisions are made at the upper echelon of the enterprise. And that is insane to think that just something like that, a skill like that, can promote you that higher up. It's really fantastic. Yeah. But when it comes to the leadership skill, now this is an interesting one to me. When I looked up the statistics on this, and you'll find statistics from everybody, from Amazon, from CIO, from Deloitte, KPMG, you find it from everybody. Mm-hmm. But there was something very specific that stuck out to me. And I'm going to read it to everybody because this came from a Gallup study that was done. And it said, the companies that have leaders who inspire and motivate. So those are aspects of leadership skills. It says their employees are going to be highly engaged. They're going to be committed. And for these type of companies, it says they can increase their actual bottom end, basically mean the income that they generate through their customers by about 147%. I don't know about everybody else, but between being CXO relevant, between being able to motivate and galvanize the groups, being able to interact and motivate and organize departments, 147%. It is insane to see how these, what we consider soft skills, trump anything you can do on the technical side. You can be the most technical person in the world. And you know what? You should be commended for the time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears that you put into that.
Yes.
But when it comes to the impact that will get you promoted, there's absolutely no competition when it comes to something as simple as being relatable and understandable to the stakeholders and demonstrating that you can bring together a group of people, continually motivate them. As a matter of fact, Zig Ziglar says that just like bathing, motivation is not permanent. So you'll need to do that every so often. You need those skills to be able to propel yourself forward. And just think about it. These are 2 skills. We haven't even touched on what about presentation skills? What about sales skills? What about those skills? What would that do to your career? And I know we're going to touch a little bit on it, so I'm going to reserve some of my statistics because I like to give statistics, because guess what you're going to do? When you have to speak the language to the higher ups, they want hard figures. They want to know, okay, how does this relate to our business outcome? Your CFO, they will love you. You're speaking their language. The engineers, a little less, but guess what? You'll also help them understand what that will do to their bottom line. So leadership skills, communication skills, being CXO relevant, my goodness. If you're looking to get into that 6-figure income, being able to propel yourself toward $250,000 income and higher, focus on those skills. Definitely.
Yeah, and I'm going to touch the leadership skills, and I'm going to bring it back to Alonzo, and I want you to actually see this interaction we have. And let's talk about the difference between the cloud architect that will lead a small to mid-sized team versus the principal cloud architect that'll lead a medium-sized team to a big team, to that distinguished architect that could be coming in there as a thought leader, influencing company decisions and the way we would do our jobs. So with that cloud architect, I need a good degree of leadership skills. I really do. And if I don't have good, strong leadership skills, I'm either not going to get hired or I'll not be effective in my role and I'll be removed at the next layoff. Sadly, that's what's going to happen. But what is different between changing an entire company and its entire structure and its entire strategy, shaping an industry versus designing a small team? Well, in one case, to design a small team, I need to have good leadership skills. I do. Now, for me to lead a team that's got 50 plus people, I need really good leadership skills. So, and I'll go to more, and I'm going to talk more about this leadership in a minute, and then I'll go back to Alonzo, even though I'm going to go to Alonzo now. Let's say Alonzo's the CEO of a bank, or the CFO of the bank, or even the CIO of a global bank. And he's got trillions of dollars under management in that bank. If I came in there and Alonzo, me and my 5 friends from Cisco, all experts in Cisco, we analyzed your needs and created a strategy and a blueprint for you. Here you go, Alonzo, let's meet. That's the kind of expression you're going to get. What? My business with trillions of dollars of management and you and your 5 buddies put it together?
No, right.
Now, by comparison, if I went back to Alonzo and said, Alonzo, I'm the distinguished architect with Go Cloud Careers. I want to let you know what we've done for your bank. After I had the initial meeting with you, I brought in a team of consultants and expert architects and expert engineers. The first thing we did is some of our management consultants actually evaluated some of the business processes you have, so we could make sure that our technology would support it. And if we could find inefficiencies, we would recommend them for you, so we can create a better technology strategy that aligns your people, your processes, and technology. Additionally, what we did is I brought in some security experts from Checkpoint, Cisco, Palo Alto, and Fortinet. I also brought in AWS, Azure, and Google. I brought in Cisco and Juniper Networks for their network expertise. I brought in a team of some software developers, DevOps engineers, cloud engineers, AI engineers, AI architects, and data scientists. We thoroughly analyzed your organization, and here's what we think we can do for you. Here is a 2-page executive summary document of what we can do. Here is a book of all of our strategy that we've prepared for your management team. Alonzo, what is the chance of it? How would you feel about looking at this and then scheduling a meeting with me in a few more weeks so we can discuss the strategy further?
High chance of success.
Yeah.
Top tier.
And the difference is, in one case, I was a small leader, a medium leader, and a good leader. And in another case, I needed to speak in the language of the CXO. I needed to show them what they cared about. I needed to prove trust, and I needed to prove that we took them serious as can be. I might even bring the whole CEO of my company for a business that big. And I got to tell you, at Cisco, we'd bring in the CEO if it was a big enough thing to go meet with the client, because you're showing that client that you care about them and they actually care about you, and you'll move mountains to get them. At that distinguished architect, you might be calling the CEO, and I need you to come with me on the sales call, along with the sales team would do it. You have that clout. So that's a lot of business that we're actually talking about. So Alonzo, what is it going to take for you to trust someone when they walk in your room and they say, I have a solution? What's it going to take to produce confidence in you?
Well, the first thing is, what am I looking at? How are you dressed? What's your stature? What's your ability to visually command the room? I need you. I'm looking at people all day. People are always vying for my attention. Everybody wants a meeting with me. I'm online. I'm walking around. I'm in person. I'm on stage. TED Talks. The list goes on and on. What's going to set you apart right off the rip to engage with me, to where I'm going to sit up and say, who is this person? Number one. Number two, how are you articulating? How are you speaking? What is your rules of engagement when you speak to someone on my level? Okay, you just don't come in here, howdy, my name is Joe Bob and I want to sell you some services. This is not you opening up your suitcase like you're cold calling me at the front door. I need to know I need to know that you've done your homework. I need to know that you know who I am, what my company is about, what I'm trying to accomplish, what we've done out in the news media. Have you looked at my website? Have you looked at the annual report? Have you done anything to show that you have you're interested in my company, you're interested in doing business? So you're thinking about those things. Then I need to know what's your experience? How have you engaged other customers? I need you to provide me with some sort of example style business case on how you brought to bear using resources of a certain level of global caliber, where you created solutions for multi-billion-dollar organizations. Have you done this before? Have you showcased some sort of metrics where they've been able to move the needle in the direction that they want when they wanted it? Do you have a collection of people that you can rely on that are consistently equally capable, professional? They have the same type of business acumen, leadership style. They're able to speak. Now look at this level. When Mike talked about people who are engaging with, just one team of 5 people, that's one culture.
Yep.
Because you all have one handful of an understood, unified, centralized culture. Move it all the way up to where I am. I'm looking at different cultures, different work styles, different holidays, different engagement. Case in point, when it comes to the Japanese, they don't like, we're doing a lot of narrating with our hands. They don't do that. They have their hands to their side. They don't utilize a lot of hand gestures. Okay, a lot of that could be disconcerting for them.
Yep.
So I need to understand who I'm engaging with culturally. So you look at that global presence of how you're presenting to me. The more you're showing this checklist, the more I'm going to engage and say, they've done their homework, they're professional, they know how to engage with C-suite leaders, they know how to showcase what they've done and how they've done it, and they're not coming here, importantly, you're not coming here with a solution that you've already drummed up for yourself without understanding what my problem is. Right off the rip, I'd say, have a cookie. Let me escort you to the elevator, showcase why I'm happy to see you, and move along. But if you're able to showcase that, you're good.
Exactly. And Mark's basically worked as a principal architect in the software-defined networking space for years now. And, when Mark started, look, you did a CCIE. Would you consider that a pinnacle of your achievement, or would you consider that your fundamentals?
Actually, both. Pinnacle when it comes to technology, because if you think about it, about 1% of the people that ever attempted, and there's maybe 3% of network professionals that attempted. So it's a pinnacle there. But what's interesting about it, we discussed this actually today in class as well, that many times when you're starting off with something, you don't know what you don't know yet.
Exactly.
How are you ever going to build some type of framework of an understanding what's out there? It's this whole idea that we have with we're the center of the universe, and yet we barely manage to make it, past certain planets, especially not out of the galaxy. So from that perspective, it humbles you really quickly.
Yes.
That you understand, listen, in this case, Mark, your journey is really just beginning. There's a whole world out there. And I generally like to use this visual in my head, that it's like the mountain I'm climbing, like Mount Everest, as I'm going for the CCIE. And if you're going for the JNCIE as well, which is the Juniper equivalent, same idea.
Same thing.
You're climbing that mountain. I finally made it on top. I'm on the peak. I'm getting rid of my sweat, and I look up and I'm like, oh my goodness. This is just one of the many peaks that I see. So many more mountains to climb, so many things to do. But what's interesting, once you put that time and effort in and trying to progress forward, is that, and this goes back to what Alonso said too, it's only part of the equation in progressing. Now, Alonso touched very much on, and again, these skill sets of promoting yourself to a principal architect, a distinguished architect, and so forth. But what I heard a lot from Alonso was this idea of trust. And I want to make it clear to everybody. Trust is not something that you can take. Trust is something that you earn with time.
Yes.
Right? So for example, when we say building rapport, we're not talking about necessarily learning the names of the children of your clients and things like that. But for example, how do you gain trust from a customer? You understand their business because that shows interest in the business. It's not self-serving. How do you come up and then be able to present them with something? Well, number one, and I got a statistic for this, 80% of your fellow architects say that it's critical to have presentation skills, because with presentation skills, it's just another form of communication. And if you can communicate and present in the proper light, guess what you're doing? You're influencing the customer to do something that perhaps they never envisioned was something that was to their benefit.
Yes.
Again, influencing does not have to be a negative thing.
No.
Think about if you have children, if you have a pet, sometimes you do and say certain things to make sure that you guide them in the direction that's best for them. They may not always immediately understand it, but again, this is where time comes in. You can over time endear yourself to your customer with these particular skill sets that not only will make you look like the goose that laid the golden egg in front of them, but also your own employer is going to look at you that way. As a matter of fact, I give you this little statistic. And by the way, documentation, my engineering friends, I know you hate the documentation, but as an architect, if you want a promotion, you got about a 25% chance of getting a promotion simply by making sure that when you present, your documentation is on par, it's clear and concise. Think about that, 25% just on this. Right?
Transfer, yeah.
The other thing is, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and you look at that, 25% just on that. I was going to add that if you look on normal paying jobs, just normal paying jobs, individuals with emotional intelligence typically earn $29.6 thousand more per year than individuals with lower levels of emotional intelligence. Across industries, emotional intelligence is considered the best predictor of career success. You can't lead without emotional intelligence. You can't influence without emotional intelligence. Quite frankly, without some degree of emotional intelligence, you're going to be fine until somebody is going to say the wrong word to you, and you're going to blow up and destroy a relationship and destroy trust. And as they were both talking about trust, it's so good. Sorry, Mark. We were both thinking at the same time.
Yeah, no problem. And this kind of brings me back also what Kennedy said in the chat. Now, Kennedy, I can't speak for a particular situation in the vicinity of Nigeria, for example. But when we're talking about having these managing challenging things when it comes to our clientele, it becomes a lot simpler if we have built trust with them. Because as a hybrid role that you're going to be in, and now again, depending on the tier of architect that you're in, the amount of technology that you will be involved in will vary. For example, a distinguished cloud architect or distinguished architect, they will have an expertise, something that really good. For example, Mike always says, I was good at BGP, I was good at IP multicast. That's what he excels in. But it did not stop him from excelling also in other things, but he was not the expert at everything. But what was critical there is trust building exercises with your customer, getting them to buy in on you, believing that you're on their side, that you're not self-serving. And that's really how you go down the road of managing customers. Because as cloud architects or as architects in general, unfortunately, I've still not figured out how to solve world hunger. I still have not been able to solve the idea of world peace. I just haven't been. So there's certain things I can't impact. But what I can impact is that the advice that my customers or my clientele are willing to take from me is going to be based towards their good, not necessarily mine. Because I go back to this, help other people get what they want, and they will also help you get you want. It goes back to that golden rule, help others, and in return, it will help you. And that way you always have a concept in your mind, if you want to call it, or this mindset, that you are in a position, or you are in the position where you are a helper. You are this eventual, what they will coin you as trusted advisor.
Yeah.
And since I remember, for everybody that puts that on their LinkedIn profile or their resume, trusted advisor, please take it off. You don't get to assign it to yourself. Your clients get to assign it to you or your company, nobody else. But Kennedy, it comes back down to trust. If they believe and they know through a roadwork or through a roadmap that you have laid out prior, and they've seen the results that your advice can give them, that's how you will manage clients in a difficult environment, because they will trust you and they will believe in your unbiased recommendations.
Yeah.
So, am I okay to still throw a couple of statistics out? I just want everybody to kind of understand.
Absolutely.
Something. Okay. So Kennedy, was it Kennedy? Yeah, Kennedy. So he says this. It says like, this is the twist from the bootcamp training. It is true. There is a certain expertise that we as technologists have to have, right, when it comes to the technology. That's just a given fact. It's a simple now when you apply to a job and they expect you to be capable of reading and writing. There are certain things that are understood. For us, it is that you have some technology acumen. But it is quite interesting when a study is made above the higher architects, anything from a distinguished architect to a principal architect, about 60% of them agree that to be successful in your endeavor as an architect, that business training, we call this business acumen, is going to be vital in assisting you to gain these higher level positions. And this gets coupled back into what some of these cloud providers said. I found a statistic from AWS, and believe it or not, they actually said that 78% of architects professionals should understand business metrics, such as a return on investment, KPIs, right? Key performance indexes, things like that. Because in the position of where you actually understand or trying to understand how do you take the customer's objective, their business objectives, and how do you transform that into something that eventually is going to have a certain outcome, you won't get around not knowing how business metrics impact that roadmap that you're trying to put together for the customer. So very important.
Mark, before you get to the next statistic, I want to show one, and then we'll get to your next statistics, because I love the statistics. Here's the real key. It's that business knowledge. If we want to go to this and we want to make those improvements to the business, but the only thing we know is tech and we don't know business, how do we help the business? How do you fly an airplane if you don't know how to fly a plane? How do you do surgery if you don't know normal anatomy and surgical techniques? You don't. So you need that level of business knowledge. And here's where it gets interesting. And then we're going to get back to Mark's statistics, but as we hear the ability to exercise influence and lead, the ability to get the executive team to take a movement, the ability to be seen as an executive leader, the ability to go solve problems in the business with a technology strategy, what you start running into the world of you're now an executive. And I can show you this. Let me share this with you. It's a graphic that Alonzo put together. And Tyrone or Chris, whoever's background, if you can share this real quick. If you actually look at executive salaries, so we have a senior director at Cisco. Again, the senior director at Cisco has to do a lot of leadership of people, a lot of influence, a lot of speaking to people, leading teams. You're seeing a salary of over $500,000. This is straight from Glassdoor. At the same time, you see a principal architect at Google on average earning $508,000. You see an IT director at NVIDIA earning $554,000. Okay, they pay a little more, but let's go to Palo Alto, a security company, same senior director, $540,000. Now, if we go to Microsoft, you can't see it. Their solution architect pay for a principal solution architect is about $378,000. and Oracle, was 296. You're starting to see these executive salaries as we get to executive architects. Now, I want to show you one other thing as we get here, and I want to start looking down this path if it makes sense. So, at that principal architect, we're getting some really good salaries. As we move into the distinguished architect, we're getting even higher salaries, typically speaking. And the higher salaries are more related to the influence you have, because your tech skills are only so much. And in that chief architect, we only see 220 to 360K, but I know many chief architects that earn $500,000 or closer to $1 million a year in certain cases. So we're moving up that business realm. So I thought that's kind of interesting to look at as we go from that distinguished architect, as we go from that regular cloud architect to the principal architect and the distinguished architect. It's more about exercising influence. It's more about leading. It's more about driving strategy. It's more about driving transformation. So these are the skills that you learn. And that's why we created our executive architect / lead architect program. That's why we've always taught these skills to our architects in any program to make sure they're better. But think about that as it pertains. Just put those numbers through your head and realize that it's there. And there's always something for us to grow. Like, I know when I said the CCIE was my entry level, and here's the reason why. When I worked harder on that than anything else, including my master's degrees. It was the hardest thing I did. And I actually left my one job, had a new job, and while I was on vacation, passed the CCIE exam. So when I got to my new job as a senior network architect, I had just become a CCIE, my number 7417, and they opened up a box of things they wanted me to do. And I didn't even know where to begin. I felt like, oh my God, look at what I don't know. I can't believe what I don't know. And that's the kind of thing that we're actually talking about. So that's when I realized, whoa, what do I learn? And, I had realized I had to learn a few things. One is I had to learn a wide range of technologies that I never knew, because, most of what I was dealing with was not going to be Cisco, even if I was in networking, because all those other applications we had to support. Just like when people learn AWS, 90% of what they deal with is not going to be AWS, believe it or not. It's going to be all that other stuff. And I also learned that if I didn't have business strategy, every time I had to walk into the chief technology officer's office to convince him to buy one of my designs at the CIO's office, I was like walking out of the office, and my manager was like, "Okay," and he's like, "You didn't convince the C-suite, right?" I'm like, he's like, "I told you, more business acumen. I'll go back and just learn that. It's not your tech skills anymore." So I learned those things. But Mark, over to you for more statistics.
Yeah, I wanted to pay. I'm going to be known as the statistic guy on YouTube going forward. I wanted to piggyback a little bit on something that Alonzo brought up, and this over time sticks out to you. And everything that Alonzo says, as we build trust, I mentioned that there's about 60% of senior architects that think it's crucial for you to have some type of business acumen training. But I left out the reason why they think it's so crucial. And it comes back to creating trust with your client. And if you listen to Alonzo, what he said a few minutes ago, it was understanding what the business is, what the implications are of the things you're suggesting to the customer, to their business. And that's why business skills, or this idea that we call business acumen, is really so important. I mean, think about this. People that are in these positions that command these six-figure jobs, some of them as high as $500,000. I mean, we have seen positions for distinguished architects where they're ranging $700,000 to $800,000, at least in the United States. And by the way, I'm not throwing those numbers off saying that these things are, available like the candy at like a Walmart or something, like a big store. There's time and effort and skill sets that are required to get you there. But the difference is the opportunities are there if you're willing to put in the work. And what we're trying to point out is that there's a particular set of skills, which reminds me of a movie, which I'm not going to get into.
Taken.
You need to have, exactly. Well, I'm actually thinking also about the spoof with, you guys, I don't know if you guys seen it. I'm going off topic. Kermit the Frog, when he was imitating that, whatever.
No, but I like Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, but there's a certain skill set that you need. And it's for us as IT professionals, a path for growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely understand. With the amount of continuous learning we have to do, especially as you progress, let's say you're in the engineering field, let's just take that. Continuous growth, continuous learning is normal. As a matter of fact, with, I think there was a statistic, let me take a look at this, about 32% of IT professionals, and they're IT leadership value continuous growth when it comes to continuous learning to technology. Okay. So we're not saying that there's none of that, but there's a big difference between 32 or 30% and 60, 72, and then the repercussions, I call them this, good repercussions of 147% of income increase for you. From that perspective, it is insane not to want to focus on these things a bit more than just simply on a technology. Believe me, me and Mike, I know Alonso's is not his favorite thing to be sitting at a command line and inputting commands, but it has some
Not
endearing
really.
qualities, at least to us, right? But on the flip side, there's other things that you can do to improve your bottom line. Now, the coder from above stated that he should move to the United States because of the low income in Canada.
They're not low.
It is all relative. And what I mean with that is you can earn $150,000, $200,000 in the United States. But if you live, let's say, in a part of the country where the cost of living is high, $200,000, $250,000 won't get you very far. But if you're in but if you're in a country where, let's say, it is a little lower the salary, instead of you earning, $250,000 or $500,000 for being a solutions architect or cloud architect, whichever it may be, your cost of living might be drastically different. So your take-home money is going to be a lot bigger than it would have been somewhere else. Again, this comes down to doing your research, understanding the implications of where you are, and perhaps looking, first of all, within your locale to see if perhaps you can get somewhere in where there's an increase in that demand to also get you that increase in income.
But before we go there, I know many people that have gotten $300,000 plus architect jobs in Canada. I've trained people that have earned far more than $250,000 in Canada on their architect job. So if that's what you're seeing people that are, and our video is all a little jittery today, or at least mine is. What you're actually seeing is people that are working in architect jobs that aren't really doing architecture. They're doing more of that engineering world, and that's why you're seeing such low pay. But I know a lot of people earning $300,000 plus in Canada, and it's very easy to get if you've got good skills. Well, it's not just the tech skills, though. It's the business skills, the leadership skills, the executive presence, the emotional intelligence. It's that whole package. And that's the difference between someone. I actually saw someone at Microsoft that wrote me a private message on LinkedIn one day and said, I don't understand. You talk about things, but the highest paid architects at Microsoft earn $100,000 a year or 120. And I said, are you kidding? The average principal architect earns $372 at Microsoft. And then his response was, well, why am I getting paid this? And I said, are you touching the tech? And the person said, yes. I said, so what are you really doing? He said, I'm doing engineering. I said, when was the last time you spoke to the C-suite? I never speak to the C-suite. I said, when was the last time you presented at a conference? He said, I didn't do that. When was the last time you did this? I said, okay, so you don't. I said, but you're designing and then you're building, right? I said, so you're not considered a solutions architect. No, I'm a technical architect. I'm like, okay, that's your issue there. That's your engineering that we've been talking about the whole time. A technical architect is an engineer. A solution architect is a system designer. As we move up the architecture roles and we get further and further away from the technology, we get more strategic. And honestly, that's the saddest thing in the world to me. It really saddens me because I see people that get 3 CCIEs. They go out there and get 15 certifications. They work so hard. And then the next person goes to a leadership class and gets a $50,000 raise. And the person that did 3 additional CCIEs basically got taught, thank you. It was nice.
You read that, Mike? If you make him earn, you'll put your logo in the living room. Love it, everybody.
We've got plenty of students in Canada that do very well, and you will not have this problem as long as you do the right things. Focus on the right things and continue to work at it until you're great. And everybody's first job differs in pay a little bit. It really does. My first one was beyond anything I ever thought it was going to be, and my next one doubled it, and I couldn't believe it. And I actually took a job that paid me far less just because I thought it was going to make me happy. It didn't. So I went to another company, but I thought it was going to make me happy. And honestly, that's what really matters most. But I like the big project. I like to feel the difference. I like at the end of the day to be able to see it. Okay, I designed this thing. Well, this thing's actually in production. And look at what it's doing in the industry. Hey, isn't that cool? Hey, you and me, my 50 buddies that we became a family in the last year. Look what we built. You guys built this thing. You guys made it happen. You guys helped me design it. And then the customer, in many cases, writes a document about it, and you can use that document, which shows more industry about you. And they will invite you to speak at industry conferences about that, about the success. You know, you can see the difference between a distinguished architect brand and a social media influencer's brand. And here's the difference. The person that goes out there and tells people what they want to hear on social media that gets a ton of followers, they're not really changing anything. They're not influencing the C-suite. The C-suite doesn't watch what they do, doesn't care what they do. By comparison, the influencer, you know, they'll be in CIO magazine. They'll be in Forbes magazine and the impact they're making. They'll be in Tech Republic. They'll be in Tech Radar. They speak at this conference. Sure, you may see them make a social media post, but they're not going to be making silly things. They're not going to be complaining about any kind of people or any kind of culture or any kind of law, any kind of political party. You're going to see none of that coming from them. They're going to always be there. They're always going to be professional. They're always going to deliver for their clients. If they can't do something right, they're going to go find whatever they have to, bring everybody to the end. They have to fix it. Because at the end of the day, that's your brand. What do people say about you when you leave the room? Not how many followers you've got on Instagram. Those followers are come and go as fast as anything, but a loyal brand, a loyal following is real work. When you've consulted to 50 CIOs, and every CIO that you've consulted to, you delivered them a win. You help make their business in some way, shape, or form. That's a network. You pick up the phone and call a CIO. Either they have a job in the organization or one of their other CIO buddies does. And you have relationships with these people over time, and you've met them over the time. And when somebody needs a distinguished architect, they call you. So when you reach these higher level positions, and there's not as many of them, but there are also less competition along the way. Because you're the person that's studying the rare set of skills. In most cases, people don't even know to focus on these skills. Mark's giving you more statistics. Mark, do you actually have more statistics? Because you usually come up with lots of numbers for everything.
I do. I have a statistic called 60% off if you want to learn these skills. So that's a what do you call it? Shameless plug, whichever. I'm horrible when it comes to half the sayings, but no, I mean that sincerely. This is a reason why we do this. We come online. We want to educate the public, our fellow IT professionals, and as well as those that are looking to break into this type of domain, to help them understand that yes, the technology is an aspect of the job.
Yeah.
But it is these other skill sets, from learning how to lead somebody, this leadership skill, which encompasses your communication skills, which encompasses knowing how to have some type of business acumen so that you can actually show people around you why you're doing what you're doing. And for everybody here, and again, 60% off, remember that. On anything on a product, you want to take advantage of it. But this is what it's going to come down, and it's going to be a mindset shift. If you progressively, through our training, 60% off, want to take advantage of whichever way you want to do it, you want to change your mindset for simply looking at a technology and then finding a reason to use it, to thinking of technology as being something that is an enabler to business. If you can manage over time, either if you train with us, if you want to do it on your own, could either be through other training. Heck, I did it myself through just general experience, because I did part of it at the managed service provider. I did part of just doing consultancy. That's also part of the architecture job. You learn these things, that mindset shift that you need to focus on what helps the business. And if you don't believe me, if you don't believe Mike, if you don't believe Alonzo, you should, but if you don't, try it yourself. If you've been in an engineering role and a help desk role, you yourself already know what your pain points are. You know that you're just a technologist. You're not that to me. You're not that to Mike. You're not that to the Go Cloud Career family.
No.
But you're viewed as a liability, unfortunately. Because you still think of it, I have technology. How do I use this technology? instead of becoming an asset and thinking about what is it that the business truly needs? And can technology be a vehicle that can drive us towards that end destination? And I think that's where the big difference comes in. And the fact that people in these positions, like Mike, myself, and others, these architects, senior architects, distinguished ones, have been there. If 60% of them tell you it is business acumen, your presentation skills, your ability to lead, to influence. Let's be honest, even as an engineer, just do your documentation. That in itself will give you a promotion to a distinguished engineer. You'll notice that it is these skills that you can readily work on that will get you that promotion, that will set you apart from everybody else. I've said it before, and I will say it now. That's what will set you apart.
Yeah, and I want to get to Data Wrangler's question as I talk a little more, because it's a good question that we should talk about. And the question is, would IT architect roles be considered a next level career move for a technologist, or are they on the management path? Should technologists who want to avoid management still pursue architect roles? So, Data Wrangler, let me give you some guidance and some thoughts. Going from a senior engineer to a principal engineer is a path up in the technologist. Going from a senior engineer to a principal architect is still going up. Now, I have to kind of make it clear to you that I don't consider an architect superior than an engineer. They are different careers. The engineer is focused on being the expert on the tech. The architect is focused on being the expert on solving business problems with technology. So they're equal, but different. Now, that's the way I feel. Now, society, I can tell you, will give you much more money as an architect, 30% more to triple your salary over the life of your career. They will promote you more, and they will treat you better with more respect. That doesn't mean I believe it's agreed to be true, but it is. So I've taken many engineers that have been IT technologists, turned them into architects, and in some cases their first role is an enterprise architect, and where it's more management. In some cases they've taken cloud architect roles, and for big money too in some of them roles, because they take your expertise, and when you learn those other skills you can do so much more with it. Now, I'm also going to say that anytime you move into any role, as you move up into anything, leadership will necessarily be there. You want to be the team lead, and you're the most senior person on the team, and you're going to help them build a development plan for your people. You've got to have some leadership skills to get them to do it. As you want to be an architect, and you can be an architect, and I've worked in other architectural roles where you're an individual contributor, but you're a senior manager and a director, which means you have no direct reports. But as soon as it's time for you to do a big engagement, you're still going to have to build a team of on the people on the fly. And they can be your buddies and people you've worked with over the years or what have you. And you'll put them together on the team, and then you'll disband the team when it's done. So if you want to go into any job that's going to pay you more, it's all going to include leadership. Because here's the thing. Let's say I'm the best architect in the world. I'm not. But let's pretend I'm the best architect in the world. Am I better than having 2 marks? Or what happens when there's 3 marks, or 4 marks, or 5 marks, or 100 marks? I promise you, 100 marks is better than I'll ever be under any circumstances. And it's better than any 10 people I'll ever find. So the key is, how do you build your team and grow your team out and add capacity and sharpen your team and make them better? That determines the amount of influence you can do. That determines the amount of effectiveness you do. You get a bunch of small twigs, you put them together, they break easy. You put 50 twigs together and they don't break, they're strong. So the farther you want to go is based upon what you've got. It reminds me of that African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah. I would say let's take a couple of questions. There's some good ones coming in. Now, I will preference them with this. We'll have the ability to have a little bit more of an in-depth discussion tomorrow during the Q&A, because it's going to be more career focused. Not like today is, but just more the format is a little bit different there. And if you're really interested in getting the breakdown, I always joke with Mike, because he goes like, oh yeah, I got 30, 40 things that make up an architect. And I'm like, my goodness, you're going to do that all on a Thursday? He goes like, well, I was thinking about it. I go like, can you start with like 3, 4 and rotate them? Otherwise people on, again, if you want the details, that's where that Thursday webinar comes into play, because Mike will break it down in simple, concise manner so that you can understand what the roadmap looks like, and you can get yourself mentally ready for if this is going to be something for you or if it's not going to be for you. Again,
Yeah.
we're discussing the benefits of the skill set that you can gain, but we're discussing it in the sense also of a cloud architect. If that's not something you want to go for, I'm going to tell you this though. Apply these skill sets also in your personal life, and then whatever other job you do. And you'll notice if it's something in technology, you're not going to be in that same position very long, because
Nope.
you're exhibiting some skill set that many people are not even willing to work for and will never ever have. But you can do that. Being able to lead, to influence is fantastic. And for those that many times they get frustrated with their leadership, you will have the opportunity to build the next generation of leaders. Be the change that you want to be. Work on it, get better at it, upskill, whichever way you want to do it. If this has to do with the training that we might provide, go ahead and do that. We'll be happy to work with you on that. And if it's not, you know what? Let us know. Come on to Wednesday's Q&As. Let us know your progress and so forth. But there is a question. I wanted to bring it up.
Before we get to that, and then I want to get to these two questions, Mark said
Okay.
something. Mark said, when you're in this position, almost immediately you won't be. Here's a video cassette. I don't know if you can see the letters on it. This is a video cassette that I was on Cisco Sales Engineer TV at Cisco. And I was asked to speak about service-oriented network architectures to all the sales engineer at Cisco. I gave that speech. It was recorded on that channel. I should look at it because I was really young at the time. And as soon as I finished it, 3 VPs at Cisco called me and they said, Mike, I really enjoyed working in our division. I really enjoyed you working in the channel. I really enjoyed here, but I'm sure you'll have a new job within the next few weeks inside of this company. And I said, huh? And the VP said, Mike, I saw the way you presented. Her name was Rhonda. She said, you showed such executive presence, such leadership, such knowledge of business that you're no longer going to be in this role. I can guarantee you within 3 months. Within 3 weeks, I was in an executive architect role and it changed everything. But it was that, and that was the key. So that's where I really wanted to talk about. It's not going to be long. People are going to see it. So Mark, let's go to the questions you have. And there's a couple of questions that we have to get to.
Okay. I'm going to field them to both of you because I want to get your perspective, Mike, on it. And so that everybody knows, Alonzo is ridiculously, I mean, there's bar to none, nobody else. If I need to talk about branding, projecting, any of these things that I'll be talking to Alonzo, and I want his viewpoint on it. If we can pick up the question from reviews with, I think it's Bryce.
Yeah, good. That was one of those questions I really wanted to touch on.
And I'll pose a question to both of you, get your opinions on it. So let's see if we can pull that up just for the video. So they're wondering, which candidate would you pick first? Again, a personal preference. Would it be someone without a citizenship, or would it be someone without a degree?
And I'll start. I don't care about either one of those things. Both of them are meaningless to me. I care about your ability to do the job that I hire for and do it well. I care about the ability for me to trust you. I care about your ability to communicate. I care about your attention to detail. I care about your energy, enthusiasm, and passion for the work. I care, can you lead a team? Can you work in a team? And how hard are you willing to work? Will you go above and beyond? I don't care about your degrees. I don't care about your certifications. I don't care about your nationality. I don't care about your citizenship. I don't care in what corner of the world you're living in. None of that means anything to me. How good are you? Now, Alonzo, how would you answer that?
Irrelevant. At the end of the day, Breeze, I need to know, can you do the job so that I can reach my goals, so that I can increase market share, meet my clients, create a good customer service experience, and ultimately make my company money. I don't care about your degrees. I know plenty, and this is probably very very bad to say, but I know plenty of people who've worked really hard to get a degree. However, their competency does not equate to said reflected degree, unfortunately. Those who can do the job, those who can learn on the job, those who can be a SME, subject matter expert, on a dime when I need to present this multi-million-dollar opportunity to C-suite so that we can get the resources we need to realize these goals. I need someone who can learn on the, learn things on a dime, be able to adjust, be fungible, be adaptive, be able to jump onto a project that is highly elusive and highly fluid with a smile on their face. They're able to roll up their sleeves and get the work done, even though they're not comfortable doing it, but they're willing to learn and grow regardless of it. So does a degree matter? No. Does your citizenship matter? No. Because if you're not a citizenship, we can find out how to get you as an organization an H-1B quickly. Do you not have a degree but you want one? Demonstrate that you have the competency in this organization, and over a short span of time, they will allocate those resources for you to reach your goals. Education.
But listen to a couple of the things that were in there. Come up to speed real fast to be able to communicate like an expert. For that, you need the ability to read. You need the ability to know where to get the information from and be able to take in a lot of information, assimilate it, and be able to present it to them. That means you need good, strong fundamentals. But also now you need to be able to communicate it to others.
Yeah.
Now that means really good presentation and communication skills. And it all comes back to that. For every one of these jobs, we're looking for that. Why the emotional intelligence? Because if I'm not emotionally intelligent and I say something negative to Alonzo, which I wouldn't do, and then something negative to Mark, is Alonzo doing anything meaningful for the rest of the day? Is Mark? Or has Alonzo gone home and is like, you know what, today's a day. I'm going to clean up some of this stuff around the house. Mark's gone, we're moving. There's construction. Today's the day to do some construction. And if people don't like you, that's what they do. And if you're in a team and you're building a team and nobody really likes you, they're not going to care about what they forgot and what they missed, and you're going to be at fault. So at the end of the day, and also, what happens if somebody on my team does something mean and nasty to Alonzo, Mark, and Chris? Nothing's getting done. So that person could be the most talented person in the world. But if I think they're going to destroy the morale on my team, I still can't hire them. So start thinking about what really matters, how you fit in, how you add to the business, what you have to offer the business. What can you do that nobody can't do? What is it that you're so good at that you do better than others? What's your secret strength? And not worry about silly business like your degrees or anything like that. I mean, we got Daniel Bosu hired as a cloud architect, and he didn't even graduate high school. He doesn't have a GED. But he was still so good that JP Morgan Chase was good enough to like him. But he had the competency, he had the personality, he had the executive presence, he had the emotional intelligence, he had the leadership skills. And honestly, he's a really great guy. And they saw that too. But, kind of think about things like that.
I wanted to also point out a little bit something to somebody. We of course have these discussions among different sessions with students, many of them also that have been so kind enough to join us here today. And I wanted to point this out. You'll hear us always say influence, influence, influence.
Mm-hmm.
And the assumption is being made that it's always about something we want somebody else to get to do. And generally, we're thinking about it has to do with some type of task. But think of it this way. Even though it will take you time to develop the skill set of being able to articulate yourself in a manner that would garner motivating somebody and getting them to actually go about and do something that is in their best interest, you can influence people, just as Mike brought out, by just the way you are, by the way they act, the way you carry yourself, and the way that kind of your kind of like energy, if you want to think of it, kind of project, right? Like that belly feeling you get when you're around somebody. You feel like, oh man, I don't know what it is. I didn't have coffee, but that person's giving me a dopamine boost just to be around them. They're making me feel fantastic. So just keep that in mind, that you can start small with trying to exhibit these particular skill sets. So it's not one of these things where you need to be an expert immediately, but you can start off slowly.
Yeah, a great example is find something you're really interested in and be able to share that excitement, that enthusiasm, and that energy with someone, like a movie. I'm a big movie buff, and there are certain movies that I love and I get excited about, and I'm able to articulate the synopsis or what was the highlight of that thing and be able to walk people through those steps of how they got it produced or anything else like that. It's the same thing with architecture, being able to talk about and get a chance to know these people, know the the leadership and be able to share the excitement of what you can help them achieve through a good team, through competency, and through a process of trust.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, let's take a look at another question here, and then we'll eventually get to some of the statements. There's some fantastic statements. It really looks like people are really understanding the mindset that is needed. But the question from ROG A, they're wondering, I'm going to school at a community college for software development. Would it be possible for me to land a cloud architect job with a AA degree, or would it be ideal to have a bachelor's?
Okay, Rog. So two things. One is software development and cloud architecture have absolutely zero to do with each other. So if you were going to get a degree to be a cloud architect, I'd advise it not to be software development. I'd advise it to be a degree in business administration, because they're not related by any stretch of the imagination. I can tell you that Daniel Bosu did not have a college degree by the time he was hired. He did not graduate high school. I can tell you that Delroy Batt had an associate degree, and I've gotten many people without college degrees jobs as cloud architects after they were trained. That is not a problem. You could even get a cloud architect job and have your school actually pay for your degree, including an MBA. Again, that's generally not a problem. The question is your training. So two things. One is I've got a free document in the description that describes what is a cloud architect and what does a cloud architect do. Please read that. And tomorrow we have I'm sorry, wait, which day is today? Today's Tuesday, right? On Thursday, we have a webinar on how to become a cloud architect. And if you have those cloud architect skills, you could be hired a year from now or 8 months from now as a cloud architect. 54% of US employers no longer care about US degrees. They've dropped degree requirements. These include companies like Microsoft, Google, I think Amazon as well, and most of the other tech companies. And the reason they're doing it is people have a very unique set of skills that are coming out. Most of it is not software development in today's world, most of these technology things, and people, what they learn in school is how to code. So there's so many other things which require networking, security, planning, and none of that gets developed by learning to code. I think it's great. I love software engineers that are going to create software, but if your goal is cloud architecture, I'd advise you to run towards cloud architecture and run away from software engineering. Because what it really is the person that designs the airplane is the architect. The person that flies the plane is the pilot. Now, nobody asks a pilot to design a rocket ship or a space shuttle. They ask an architect to design it, and then the engineers go and build it. If you're studying how to fly the plane, when you want to design the plane, what you're learning is the exact opposite of what you need. So if you're halfway through the software program, finish your degree, because it's great. You'll always want to have a degree. And it's perfectly nice to have a stamp on your degree. But it doesn't matter if your degree is like mine. For example, I used to practice internal medicine. I'm a nurse practitioner. That's where my first degrees came from. My second was an MBA. I used to make a joke out of it with employers. Well, since there was no such thing as a degree in networking anyway, and software engineering, again, had nothing to do with it, I used to say, well, I can fix sick people. I can fix sick networks. I can take charge of a situation because I was a firefighter paramedic. So I learned a lot more doing that than I actually would have. And oh, by the way, I got a master's degree here where I had to learn how to diagnose and treat people that didn't give me good information and thrive under pressure, which is exactly what, and I showed them how that was what I was doing as an architect, and they loved it. So I kind of hope this helps.
Yeah. Before Alonzo chimes in, I just wanted to let Rog know about this. I'm a firm believer, and so is everybody else here, in looking at the skills that you can transfer into your aspiration of becoming an architect. What I find really interesting is, even though there is not a, let's say, one-to-one correlation between software development and actual cloud architecture, there's aspects of understanding how a program is put together, what are the different frameworks that you're using to do so. And in between it, you also notice that you're building the application or the software with a purpose in mind. And understanding that, I think, is really going to come into handy when you're doing things such as migrations from an on-premise environment to a cloud environment, because you understand that if I'm just doing a lift and shift where basically I'm just grabbing it and dumping it in the cloud, perhaps would not be the best for the applications that we have. And understanding how these applications perhaps are built can give you a leg up on perhaps be more specialized in migrations from into the cloud, because you have that type of background. So don't ever think that the things you've already done and the things that you're learning cannot be transferred. It's a very important thing to keep that in mind, and it should never deter you. The biggest thing here probably, and this is what Mike was trying to point out too, is depending how far you are within your actual education and gaining that degree, go ahead and finish it. But also start thinking about, and we call this the opportunity cost. What will get me the biggest bang for my buck? This, or basically, what do I get the largest return on my investment? Your investment is going to be predominantly time and some financial investment, right? When you got to get resources, training. What about these two will get me closer to my goal of becoming that architect? And when you do that type of thinking, again, we're talking about the purpose of what we're doing. We're going to get skills that are going to help us achieve the ultimate goal, that business outcome. And just a little hint, if nobody picked up on it, it's the same thing you're going to be doing with your clients. You first are going to think about what they're trying to accomplish so that you can be the bridge between the technology and the business and start mapping these different requirements from one to the other. And it's the same thing we do in life as well. I don't know anyone, well, I'll take that back. Most people, they generally make a list when they go shopping. And they put things on the shopping list. Why? Because they need it. There's a reason behind it. Unfortunately, we go in the store and all of a sudden, I don't know what happens. That list just magically goes away. And the next thing we're coming out with $400 or $500 and be like, I don't know, I didn't need it. Don't do that. Okay. But just a simple example. Do you have anything to add to Brock's question, Alonzo, before we move on to the next question?
You guys really fleshed it out a lot. Not a lot that I can contribute at you guys that wouldn't be an overlap. Finish it up, finish it up. One of the things that I definitely finish it up, align what you know, what you have learned with what it means to be a very good, competent cloud architect. Put together a list about what you've learned in software development with your degree. Put a list together against that with what you need to be to become a cloud architect. Reconcile through a gap analysis how you can learn and how we can definitely help you with that. But ultimately, one of the things that I would impart is that when you get hired, and I know you will, pivot anything that you have educationally into a business degree. Okay, tech comes and goes. Tech evolves. There's always going to be feature work, and it's going to continually, it's going to be a CI/CD a moment, But business is going to be stalwart. It's always going to be needed. It's always going to have some key things like understanding your customer, understanding soft skills, emotional intelligence, presentation skills, understanding how the business is working, business acumen. Think about moving and getting that degree once you have an opportunity to work with an employee, and they may even pay for it.
All right, let's take a look at our next question here. I believe it's from Data Wrangler, correct? No. So it says many technologists like certification exams because they provide an easy way to track progress in technical areas. What are some strategies to track progress in non-technical or soft skills growth?
Okay, what a great question. And Data Wrangler, let's talk about the progress that certifications track. Generally speaking, the name of something and how to configure it. So certifications as a general rule are more focused on the implementation skills. As we move up into engineering, it becomes more about performance tuning and more about optimization. And again, less of that's ever going to be covered in certifications, with the exception of a few rare certifications like the Cisco Certified Design Expert or the Cisco Certified Internet Expert. For the most part, everything else is more entry level. So none of the big stuff we can actually track with certifications. Now, if it's related to soft skills, and I can tell you there's two ways you can do this. And there was the way that I did it, which was I got training in it and I got a coach. And I can tell you by doing it that way, it was very fast. Okay, I had a coach. I had some training in exercising influence, some executive presence. Poof, a multi-$10,000 raise, 5,000 stock grants, and a bigger bonus. Poof, that was instant. It was instant feedback. And when you're with people like us, where we coach you along the way, you'll see it. I can tell you that I've had students, and once they came to us to learn cloud architecture, I can think of my friend Ian, who's Jamaican, who's in England. He used to say, Mike, My relationships with my girlfriend are getting so much better after I've taken your training and some of the communications. I can tell you, I have other students that have said, Mike, I get along with my kids now. Mike, I got a promotion at work. Mike, people are starting to talk to me. Or Mike, I'm being considered for a promotion. What happens? So as your soft skills get better, what'll happen is people will be more unlikely to invite you to things. They'll be more unlikely to ask you to present at a conference. They'll be more likely to put you in a leadership things. But here's the key. If you're not being trained and you're trying to figure this stuff on your own, this is a very, very long process. If you've got someone that can look at you, they can have you do something, and as soon as you give a presentation, well, pause here, vary your vocal tone here, take up more space here, and you try it, and you practice it, and it gets better, you could be learning things a lot faster that can have a big impact in your salary. And at the end of the day, if we're talking skills and these kinds of skills, like how to give a better presentation, how to lead, how to drive exercise influence, how to drive innovation, are the kind of things that can take this guy, and I don't want to mention his last name, from a $140,000 job to a $409,000 job after a year of our training. And look, he was awesome to begin with. He was awesome. He was an incredible technologist to begin with. He was. But what he learned was his ability to exercise influence and lead. And he had many opportunities that were equally that good that he's turned out. But, failing that, you'll see it. And if you don't see it from your relatives, you need better feedback and you need to do it quicker. And why do I always worry about time? Because if you learn a skill like this, and I can tell you that executive presence training, by the time I was done with the impact of my bonus that year, and the 5,000 shares that I was given as a restricted stock grant, and I don't mean options, I mean shares, and that was like a $30,000 raise. It was almost $100,000 extra that year. And sure, it was $25,000 of coaching. It was, but $25,000 coaching one time got me close to $100,000 more that year. Then next year, I had a bigger salary and a bigger bonus. I had another promotion because I kept focusing on all those things. So sometimes time equals money. Sometimes speed matters. Sometimes speed doesn't matter. If I wanted to learn Italian, I speak Greek, but if I wanted to learn Italian, if I learned it in 3 years versus 1 year, it's not going to impact my life. If I had to start a business in Italy in 6 months from now, it would be a big impact in my life. But some things you can slow down. But if you can speed up your earnings early, and then you can invest that money early, and you can let that money compound itself, you can be in a world of different positions, because money now is worth a lot more than money later. And when you've got the business acumen and the financial acumen to understand that, you also know how to invest better for yourselves. You know what assets to buy or not buy. You can understand what are going on in financial markets. You can understand the macroeconomic environment. In many cases, you can make predictions, and you can advise your clients based upon what you see, which makes you a better strategist.
All right. If we can briefly, and I'd like to get both your opinions on it. It's not a question, it's a statement, but it's from Kennedy Uwadia. If we can put that up on the screen, it starts with, "Please don't get me wrong." And then I'll paraphrase this. So it says, "Please don't get me wrong." He's saying that having some technical prowess is definitely relevant, but being able to lead and manage, and here's the key: people, processes, and technology. These are the three things that eventually serve the customer and actually support the customer instead of putting them down. So Kennedy, 100% correct on that aspect. But I want to get you to take in regards to this whole idea as to why are we putting people first, moving on to processes, and why are we focusing on the technology last? And by the way, this is not purposefully reverted. This is actually how we look at it in architecture, the people, processes, and technology. Maybe I can get your take on it first, Alonso, from your perspective. Some of your experiences when it comes to this.
Yeah. Let's always remember. I say this a lot. So, say for instance, I live in Texas. Trucks are big in Texas. Everything is big in Texas. So imagine that your home is the business, and you buy this extended cab Ford 350 dual axle pickup truck. It's long, it's strong. and you back it up into the truck, back it up into your driveway. And the more you back it in, the more you realize that truck, which represents the technology you want for your business, does not fit. So what are you going to do? Are you going to throw away the whole house and move and take your truck with you? Or are you going to reconsider that maybe I like this truck, I like it, it's shiny, it's new, but it doesn't fit my home and it doesn't fit the needs that I have for it? Same thing with technology in your business. You have to really evaluate. You just don't go after the shiny stuff. You don't go after everything that's new and it's the best thing on the block. But if it's good for the business, that's what it needs to be focused on. So I say all that to say that we have relationships and we create these relationships to help understand leadership, understand the business, and the technology is the tool to help realize their goals. We don't throw away or we don't reprioritize the technology over the business. We focus on the business and use technology to help them reach their goals.
You have something to add to that, Mike? Your unique input?
No, I mean, I really think that's the key. I mean, how many of us have a spouse or a best friend that comes home with 10 boxes of shoes a day, or furniture because it's on sale, and there's 2 bookcases, and you don't know which one is you're going to use until you figure out which one actually fits in the house? I know people that do this really well, that just buy shoes every single day, and then they hope they can figure out where to use it. Me, I'm the kind of the exact opposite. I've got 1 pair if I have to be in front of like a venture capitalist that looks really fancy. I've got another pair that I can actually walk in if I had to. And I've got 2 pairs of sneakers, white ones, black ones, and a backup pair in case one gets wet. And that's it. I don't have any others because that's all I could potentially ever use in my life. But, you know, that's the thing. So, no, I think it's, I completely agree with everything you all have said there.
All right, fantastic. And by the way, sales, take a look at the chat box. You'll notice there's a 60% sale. It's actually fun always calling it out, shameless plug. But you guys have it, including the Thursday's webinar. Now, I'm going to be a little selfish here for a moment because I kind of anticipated this question popping up. And I'm actually kind of glad that it's our old friend Scooby that kind of asked it. So if you could put it up on the screen, it starts with AI won't be infringing. And I actually have a statistic ready for you, Scooby, because I anticipated it. But his question is, AI won't be infringing on this career path, correct? You are 100% correct. Yep. As a matter of fact, recent studies, statistics have shown that job postings have increased 30% fold when it comes to asking for at least the knowledge, not the implementation, but the knowledge in regards to areas like artificial intelligence, including large language models. This will also include machine learning, right? You also know a little bit about that. And then interestingly, and we don't always talk too much about this, but we talked about it in the CCSB bootcamp when we talked about security, which is data analytics. Now, there you go. As expected, Scooby. I knew somebody was going to ask. I was hoping it was you. But the reason I mentioned that is, while this is more specific to cloud architecture and that type of role, we discussed in about over the last 2 weeks when we had the security bootcamp, when we also discussed cloud, we were discussing in the different aspects on how AI and machine learning aid when it comes to anomaly detection. Basically, where we're building a baseline, but we also use external systems to be able to feed us what has happened with other customers so that we can also make a decision. This is part of the threat intelligence that we can gather so that we can make a decision. So we see that it's not just cloud architecture. We see that now security gets involved on the networking side. What do you think we use when it comes to software-defined networking, when it comes to even software-defined networking on the local area network side? That all eventually is going to be driven more and more by this input of machine learning that can help us to ingest the data, and then we'll use additional systems to be able to actually take a look and visualize the data. So with a 30% increase in employees wanting us to have that type of skill set, hey, AI is just a vehicle to get you more money at this point. But the idea is,
let's talk about who AI implements, who it impacts, and why it's not the architect. So I'll give you a couple of things that we do as architects, and I want you to see why AI can't do it. We analyze the current systems and infrastructure. So that might mean in an organization 200,000 IP addresses, 10,000 routes in their interior gateway protocol, 8 ISP connections, each one taking in 800,000 routes, 5,000 remote locations, 50,000 servers, 100,000 containers, 30 petabytes of data that are across every continent but Antarctica, and 1,000 applications. That is beyond what AI can do. Now, AI cannot collaborate with stakeholders and learn the stakeholders' business requirements. AI cannot assess and mitigate IT-related risk by speaking to the organization executives, learning the key points in their business, key processes in the business, and figure out where the risks are. Adopt this new technology strategy. These are the risks to your business. It just can't do that. It can't lead an architecture review board where you've got people coming in from all over the company and they're trying to put together something. AI cannot manage vendor relationships. AI cannot design disaster recovery or business continuity plans because it can't understand the enterprise and the way it works. AI can't participate in strategic planning sessions. AI can't prioritize portfolio investments. AI can't lead a bunch of people in a proof of concept. AI can't develop, assess, maintain an IT maturity model. So there's no risk to the architect. If anything, AI, as Mark said, increases architect jobs because it gives us a new opportunity to transform the business. Now, which are the jobs that get crushed by AI? Software development. Google is writing 24%, 25% of their code right now with AI, and they just started doing it in the last year. When they have good, when they do more work with their tensor processing units, as you see FPGAs, ASICs, and GPU performance go up, 5 years from now, I think 90% of software will be created by AI. So software developers need a cause concern. Cloud engineers are okay for right now, but do you know why we stopped selling our cloud engineering course about a year and a half ago, 2 years? I didn't want to sell it. We had a good course. It made lots of money. People kept buying it. It was easy. We had some other people teaching the course, so it was no work on me. I stopped selling it because I said that AI can write a Python script. AI can write a Bash shell script. AI can write a Terraform script. AI can run a Windows PowerShell script. And AI can do 50 to 80% of the cloud engineer's job. And I thought, why would a company hire somebody when they can use AI to do most of it? They'll get rid of their bottom 2/3 of engineers and they'll keep their best rock stars. So engineering careers are at major risk. Now, the engineers that are the best, the engineers that have deep knowledge, not the kind that have collected 50 certifications, but the kind of people that know something and know it real well, where they're an industry leader and they're an expert, that people, they're the go-to person that's going to present at a conference, that's going to lead large projects, that's going to be consulting. Those people are always going to be safe because they're the best of the best and the best. And AI can never be as good as them. But that person fresh out of college isn't going to be as good as AI in most cases. That bottom 50% of software engineers aren't going to be as good as AI 6 months from now, let alone from 5 years from now. So any job that involves a lot of people, cloud architecture, enterprise architecture, solutions architecture, AI architecture, network architecture, completely safe. Any job in sales, well, this would be an account manager, a technical account manager, any place where you've got to meet people, 100% safe. Managing large projects, relatively safe kind of job because they're people. Managing people, again, a safe job. Not safe, generating blog content. Not safe, writing code. Anything that can be done to a machine where the machine can do it better, faster, and cheaper than we can, or at least 2 out of 3, that gets offloaded to a machine. But you're not selling $1 billion architecture without meeting people, without sales skills, without executive presence. So as long as you consider to think, what makes us human? What is it uniquely special about us and humans? And that's our ability to build relationships, our ability to learn, our ability to strategize. As long as we focus on that, we're not at risk of being replaced by the machines. I kind of hope that helps.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, this is I think this is very important for everybody to hear, and I'll tell you why. AI is a passion of Alonso's, and that's why I'm so happy also that this was popped. If we can keep the question up from Scooby, please, the one about AI. it's a passion from Alonso when it comes to AI. He's intimately involved also with our lead instructor, David Linthicum, when it comes to the AI program. I want you to listen specifically to his take from somebody that loves this type of technology, if he believes if it's infringing your career path or if it perhaps does something different. Alonso, if you don't mind giving us your 2 cents on it.
Yeah. Now Mike had expounded a lot on AI and its effects. So as we continue to go down the path, understanding what AI can do, specifically a lot of components of how LLMs have given way to a lot of evolving opportunities for AI to be used, specifically with agentic AI, where each of these components are working autonomously and creating solutions based off of analytic patterns and so forth. That is increasing the imperative of engineers, developers, and programmers as we know it to evolve and create more in widespan competencies that they can that they just can't lean on their laurels anymore. So you're looking at how it's creating more business value add with what's going on out there. And I'm choosing my words carefully because I can easily go off into a whole nother spiel about my love for Gen AI and what solutions it's providing out there. But overall, keeping in that space, unfortunately, programmers, developers, and engineers are inadvertently being put on notice that programming is no longer going to be the strength that you can flex that you can rely on anymore. So Gen AI, great. Its presence has been immediate. It's been widespread. Specifically when OpenAI's ChatGPT came on the scene, going on 3 years this month, and how it blew the lid off of everything. However, we still need people who are able to communicate its benefits, be able to incrementally share with stakeholders what it can do, what it cannot do, when to use GPUs, when you don't need GPUs, instead continue focusing on CPUs. What is the aggregate cost? Are we focusing too much on LLMs and creating this big, huge data-driven monster? But unfortunately, a lot of the data that we have in there, we can't use right now. So are we building something that we're going to get an immediate return on investment, or are we filling it full of data that's not necessarily useful for our business at this time? And being able to share with stakeholders what the differences are. What do we need? What versus what do we want? And how that's going to equate to business value over a span of time. So that requires discussion, that requires careful considerations with these stakeholders so that they understand what they can expect when they're doing and dealing with AI, and that they need to take incremental steps instead of throwing money at a solution, when they should be careful with focusing on the problems each step of the way, so that they can keep their goals focused on that bullseye over a span of time and keep their investment
That's
going.
the key, and that's the key point of the architect, is to find and solve the correct problem. So
yes,
when reviews with buyers asked which candidate we would prefer, someone without citizenship or someone without a college degree, and Alonso and I said, what does any of that have to do with anything? If he believed that was a concern, he'd be in a rush to take action to solve one of those two problems. In the end of the day, Alonso and I and any hiring manager, we don't care about any of that. So, but we care about something else. So what I do care is, can that person do the job? So I'm more concerned about someone having the skills of that than finishing a degree in something that's unrelated. So how does that person have the job? And if you think it's the degree, you put all your effort in the degree. If you think it's the job, you get the skills for the job. So you have to know which problem you want to solve. I'll bring back the old Coca-Cola in case any of you are old enough to remember it. When I was younger, Pepsi had come out, and Pepsi hired Michael Jackson, all these big athletes, Olympians, and they ran commercials with them. And out of nowhere, Pepsi's market share did boom, 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 and Coke's went down. So Coca-Cola didn't think about what was actually going on, that they had like Michael Jackson and all these legendary actors and athletes supporting Pepsi. They thought maybe Pepsi was sweeter than Coke. So Coke literally went and changed their formula. And then you know what happened? Pepsi sales went even higher and nobody started drinking the Coca-Cola. And then they had a new Coke and an old Coke and an old new Coke, and it cost them a fortune. The real issue at the end of the day was they liked the marketing campaign that Pepsi had, and Coca-Cola needed to change its marketing campaign, not its formula, because they were solving the right problem. And I got to tell you, when I would practice internal medicine, somebody would come into me because they had a boo-boo or a rash on their arm, and that was what they were concerned about, and I'd find cancer or heart disease in that visit. That was the real problem. So hope that makes sense why AI just makes so many more opportunities for architects, but it can be dangerous and punishing for certain types of other careers.
And just to point out, I am thankful to Alonso for having the self-discipline in holding back his excitement for AI, because him and I, we've had conversations spanning a good 2 hours just on the fun part of AI. And guys, he is a river full of knowledge when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
If you've not been part of the Gen AI program, haven't seen it, my goodness. Alonso, I commend you for being able to hold back. It's like this. Anyway, just to give everybody a little, thank you for that. Just to give everybody a little heads up, we're going to entertain a few more questions because we do have another engagement at about 4 p.m. Eastern time sharp. So we just want to let you know. But just to kind of bring it back out there, if you do have additional career questions, we will be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. to hold our weekly Q&A question session. So you're welcome to join us as well. If you want something that's a little bit more tailored towards the cloud architecture career, or you want to have a little bit more details when it comes to generative AI curriculum or the cloud curriculum, make sure that you join us on Thursdays as well. That way that you can get a little bit more tailored approach. And that way we're going to be on Zoom. We can have a one-on-one conversation, get you off mute, and maybe turn on your camera if you feel comfortable doing that as well. Aside from that is, there's that, again, that 60%. Tyrone reads my mind. I'm looking at the chat. I see 60% off Black Friday deal. Take advantage of that if you're interested in any of the programs. If you want to focus not just in the technology, the tech is there, but if you really want to focus on not having to spend $200,000-$300,000 on getting your MBA, but still be able to get the necessary soft skills from business leadership, business acumen, and as well as the presentation and sales skills, go ahead and take advantage of that. So with that, let's field a couple more questions. I believe there was a question. Let's see if that's the right one. I think it's from Data Wrangler, Tyrone. Okay,
Yeah.
here we are. It says, how are cloud architects' positions at smaller companies, for example, let's say under 100 employees, different from those at larger consulting or multinational companies?
Right. So Data Wrangler, I don't need a cloud architect in a company with less than 100 people in 99% of cases, unless it is a technology company that's going to be designing stuff all on cloud. I need a cloud architect because I'm working with an enterprise client that's got 100,000 people and 1,000 different systems. I need them because I've got a business, but generally speaking, small businesses don't need cloud architects. And they need very little technology people. So even a network engineer, there's a guy that's got network teaching classes, and he worked for a supplement company that had four locations. And he tried to say that he's been working on an enterprise network. At 4 locations, you don't know what you don't know, because in networking, nothing comes to scale. Your routing protocols don't come to scale. There's no tuning or optimization that needs to be done, and you're not even doing anything. So companies wouldn't need network engineers, for example, unless they had a few thousand employees or at least a few hundred locations or something big. They could have somebody that does a lot of things. So that you don't find cloud architects working at small businesses. You may find us working at small consulting companies that does consulting, where we do the same thing as we would in a big company, but we're now a boutique company. You'll see a cloud architect, or in fact, maybe 50 or hundreds of cloud architects at big global enterprises responsible for their clouds. You'll find thousands of them in cloud providers. You'll find thousands of them in consulting companies. But we don't work for small companies as a general rule. They just don't have a need for expensive people. Most companies of less than 100 people don't need to pay $200,000 or more a year for a technology strategist. They don't have strategists at that point for the most part.
Yeah, and I want to briefly point something out just from my own personal experience, and then Alonso can chime in based on his own experience too. When working for a managed service provider, at some point, you see different sizes of businesses. And you won't believe how many times a business just requires an edge solution, meaning they just require some type of internet connection and they're off to the races. Not much else is needed. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of people that push certain technologies, let's say like using BGP for routing, when it's absolutely not necessary.
Yeah.
So that's why you see that the reason you can command such a salary in architecture positions is because your clientele require expertise in solving complex business problems. Many of these complex business problems do not necessarily impact companies that are just national. So if we're talking about multinational companies or multi-transnational companies, they generally are going to require that extra white glove service, let's call it that extra white glove service compared to some of the smaller counterparts. Those will also take advantage of a different type of operational expense model. They'll generally go for like an operational expense compared to a capital expense, just because it makes transitioning into companies a lot simpler. Just my 2 cents on it. Alonso, anything you'd like to add when it comes to?
Yeah, definitely. Your smaller problems require smaller resources, smaller solutions. Larger problems, not only do they have this large, depending on what the needs of it could be a large series of microservices, a large monolithic. They require a strong army of competent, capable people to not only run this machine, but also keep it optimized, keep it efficient, and also meet the needs of their customers, internal stakeholders, as well as making sure that they maintain their competitiveness. So that requires a large skill set of people. You can't have someone who doesn't know what they don't know reconfiguring a BGP based off an example that they had on a mock exam and bringing things down. Now, understand, everyone, that you have to think about what will it cost for a company to be down in terms of financial. Mike and Mark, what is the downtime cost for organizations
It
by the minute
depends.
lately?
There are organizations I work with that are about $1 million a minute of downtime.
Yeah. So you think about, that's a large problem, and they require preemptive. They don't need reactive. They need proactive people who know how to mitigate these issues. That requires competency, skill set, the ability to do the job, how to talk to people. The more you talk to people, the more comfortable they are. The more comfortable that they are, they're willing to tell you everything you need to be successful and reach those goals. So you think about all the dynamics that come with those larger organizations. That's where the money comes in. That's where the bonuses, commissions, stock options, promotions, because they need sharp people to keep them afloat when they're dealing with competitors on a global scale.
Fantastic. All right. Which one of you wants to pick our final question for the afternoon?
Let me see what we have.
Let's let Mike do it.
Regarding Scooby stuff, I'm going to say always check with your certified public accountant, because they know tax law better than we do. So I'm going to go to reviews with Burrs. Okay. What do we think of DevOps? This again goes back to, I have deep respect and appreciation for DevOps engineers. I think what they do is important, and I think they're very important people. But, and here's but, 50% of what DevOps engineers do can also be done by AI. So if I was going to pick a career, if I loved software development and I already was a really good developer, and I wanted to be on that hands-on operations side that merged software development with operations, I would do it. If that was my love. Now, if I was looking for my long-term career, I would be concerned about the impact of AI on DevOps, which I'm not concerned about, say, architecture. I would look and say, over the life of your career, you'll earn 2 to 3 times more in architecture. So the question becomes, is what do you love? If you want to go out there and design a solution and go meet people, and you're looking to move into a CIO role or a VP role later on, or an SVP role, I would move into an architecture role or something more customer facing. If I didn't like talking to people and didn't want to talk to people, and I wanted to do my own thing with tech, and that was me, and it was my personality, and it's what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be a DevOps engineer, Fine, but I would be the best DevOps engineer I could be. And I would study 3-4 hours a day when I got home from work every single day. So I could be in that top 1 or top 2%. Because I really believe that unless you're that good, AI is going to take a lot of these engineering jobs away. So I love engineers. I have deep respect for them. But in today's world where engineering, and I've interviewed a lot of people, and if I interview 1,000 people, I'm going to tell you that 980 of them aren't as good as AI in engineering. In architecture, it's not applicable because no AI can do it. But when you see that, it would be a concern. When you interview people, and all day you interview people by what's on their resume, and they can't give you an answer by anything that's on the resume. When you have people on your staff that say it's 5 o'clock, I'm going home, I don't care if you need me. That gets there. And at least just think of the impact of that on your career, of the impact of a machine that will basically work for free, that will work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, not get the cold, not get a flu, not get COVID, not ask for a raise. And over time, as the compute capacity goes up, the AI costs go down. Make sure if you want to be an engineer, be the best engineer out there where you're irreplaceable. Otherwise, I recommend, and I've written about it in Forbes magazine and CIO magazine, on HR.com, and a whole host of other organizations, get into a customer-facing role, get into a sales role, get into a leadership role, get into an executive role, get into an architecture skill role. And by doing this, you'll always have a job because you'll be focused on your humanity. And what's the most important skill reviews with Barry? Probably as an architect is communication skills, because if you don't have them, the only thing that will happen is you'll have the hardest time getting the right requirements. You won't be able to get the right requirements. You won't be able to communicate it to the engineering team. You won't be able to build that engineering team. You won't be able to get the right information. And without the right information, garbage in, garbage out. So ultimately, I'd say communication skills are the biggest skill for there. So I know we're going to try and be on time today, Mark and I. Alonzo already had another call that he had to take that was scheduled immediately at the hour. So I hope you had a good time.
I can use the buzzer. Can I use the buzzer for us to wrap up?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a brief mention before you take us back, before you wrap us up. Wow, I can't believe now my English is leaving me. Sorry. Before you wrap up the session, I wanted to bring out this. Prop Sharon, you asked in regards to a book list. Do us a favor, send us a private message on Slack, and then let us know roughly what video, because I think you're talking about a video that's probably about 2 years old or something like that. If not, let us know and we'll take a look at it. When it comes to reviews with Bryce, that is a fantastic question in regards to what are the most important skills a cloud architect should have.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned some of them today.
Yes.
If you want really to have the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into the variety of skills. And when I say there's 30 to 40 skills, I'm not exaggerating. Mike has a list of them. Be sure to join us on Thursday webinar. We'll have a little bit more time to have an intimate conversation in regards to what that roadmap would roughly look like.
Yeah.
Mike, any closing comments?
Yeah. So, tomorrow, Mark and I are going to answer career questions. We love doing it. I know the mistakes I made earlier in my career, and the expression, a wise person learns from their mistakes, but an even wiser person learns from other mistakes. So I don't want you to have to make any mistakes. Mark and I are going to come. We're going to be free. We're going to be there for 2 hours tomorrow on YouTube from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. Thursday, join us on the How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar. And if you desire to be a career, we're building an architecture career while we're on sale. Our training right now costs approximately 1 day's architect pay for the average graduate, the average architect that's out there working in there. So we can't make it any cheaper, and we literally couldn't operate if it was. But we want to give you every opportunity to change your life and have a career that you love, a career that pays more than you've ever imagined, and a career that can grow with you. If you guys really enjoyed this topic on how to move up to a principal architect or distinguished architect, maybe go give me a hashtag principal architect or distinguished architect, and maybe we'll do more discussions on this. Because I think more architects want to know how to go from that base and solutions architect to that principal architect or the distinguished role. Let me know what your thoughts are. Thank you all. If you had a good time, like the video, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified of new things, that kind of thing. I'm learning YouTube, but I love spending time with you. Take care, everyone.